Arms score, Rock Island Armory continues to produce affordable, reliable, and quality 1911 pistols, among other firearms. Let me take some of your time to present one such firearm, Rock Island Armory Rock Ultra MS 45 ACP. Stay tuned and we'll learn about it together. The Rock Island Armory, or RIA as I will refer to it, Rock Ultra MS 45 ACP is but one pistol in the Rock series of 1911 pistols. The Ultra family consists of 9 pistols, all having more features than the Standard family. But before I get into the features, let's take a look at the specifications for the Ultra MS 45 ACP. As I mentioned in the introduction, the Ultra family of 1911 pistols offer more features over the Standard family. Some features of the Ultra can be found as well on the Standard, and I'll note what features are available on the Ultra over the Standard as I move through this segment. Beginning with the finish, a black parkerized treatment is applied to the slide and frame and is, for the most part, nice and even. Parkerization has been around for a long time, and while it does not have the pizzazz of polished blued steel, it does do the job of protecting firearms and more from the elements. I think that one would agree that the front end of a 1911 chambered for the 45 ACP cartridge is impressive, with a copious effluent point from which the bullet exits. That 4.25-inch bull barrel is of the standard John Moses Browning swing-length design that has served well over the ages. You will see the barrel again later. Also note that there is no barrel bushing, as is found on the full-size model. The front of the slide is void of serrations, as now, it seems, is in vogue with some 1911 pistols to accommodate press checking. You probably have noticed that the Ultra MS utilizes a full-length guide rod that is commonly referred to as an FLGR. This is a one-piece unit that incorporates a hole to insert a bent paperclip or such to accommodate field stripping of the pistol. A fiber front sight adorns the front of the slide. A fiber front sight, while showing brightly in sunlight, is not all that great in the dim lighting of my favorite indoor range, but is quite easy to find in outdoor lighting. It seems that fiber front sights are in these days, but I would prefer a good white dot front sight, or even better, a tritium sight with translucent orange or green outline. With that said, fiber front sight is adequate for most to use during the daylight hours. Moving to the rear, the ejection port has been lowered and flared for positive ejection of spent shell casings. The extractor is the common internal type and seems to do its job well of extracting cases from the chamber. And, speaking of the chamber, Please note that there is not a witness hole at the rear of the chamber for checking to see if a round is chambered. Finely cut serrations provide an adequate surface for racking and releasing the slide. Now let's talk about that rear sight. One feature that I surely appreciate on these pistols is the low-profile, fully adjustable 2-dot rear sight. It is great to simply adjust them for the bullet to impact the target where you want it, rather than using Kentucky sighting to compensate for any elevation or windage issues. A wide and well-formed ambidextrous thumb safety is at your disposal for placing the pistol in safe or a fire condition. Movement in either direction is positive and distinct. The ambi thumb safety on this firearm is one of the few I have found that does not pinch my finger when placing it into the fire position. There is a wide enough shelf for my thumb to rest on the safety when shooting. Above that ambi safety is the hammer. That is now the common roiled and skeletonized combat type, and has enough surface area and serrations for cocking and decocking. Cocking the pistol using the hammer takes a bit of effort, as the mainspring rate is around 20 pounds. The hammer has the usual 2-position stop notches, 1/4 cock and full cock. Many carry the pistol in condition 2, hammer down on a loaded chamber, with the hammer at the 1/4 cock position. But that is not the intent of the 1/4 cock notch. If the hammer is in the full cock position and the pistol is dropped, on the hammer or not, and the hammer fell forward, the 1/4 cock notch is intended to stop the hammer and prevent it from striking the firing pin, thus preventing the pistol from firing. More on that later. The beaver tail grip safety is excellent at keeping your shooting hand out of the way of the hammer and slide as they do their work. Due to the low bore axis of the 1911, I can get the web of my shooting hand high on the backstrap as possible, while the thumb of the shooting hand rides the thumb safety. To aid in gripping the pistol, the metal mainspring housing is checkered, while the front strap has vertical serrations. One thing that I would like, and it is a personal thing, is an A1 arch mainspring housing, as it conforms to my hand better than the flat mainspring housing. This one may be changed out at some point. Now, let's talk about the grip. The assault on the hand by the G10 VZ grip panels provide an excellent surface to grip, even when the shooting hand is wet, although they can become unpleasant when shooting the pistol for long periods of time. Actually, assault would be a misnomer, but I can't say that these grip panels massage the hands. The Ultra MS is not a target pistol. It is a pistol intended to be a working pistol. The G10 grip panels are secured by black T10 torque screws. When shooting at the range for practice, I sometimes wear a shooting glove to keep my delicate hands from being damaged while helping to soak up some of the recoil generated when bullets exit the muzzle. On the left side grip panel, there is a nice cutout for placement of the thumb. For me, it provides a nice channel in which to guide the thumb to the magazine release button, since I am a shooter that places the thumb on top of the thumb safety while shooting. The right grip panel is relieved at the top to allow clearance for the right side thumb safety lever to be placed in the fire position. The G10 grip panels help to mitigate the pistol moving about in the hand. I find the G10 grip panels on the Ultra series to be moderately aggressive. I also found that I was not readjusting my grip as much as with some other type of grip panels, and muzzle flip was very moderate, which meant that I can get back on target as quickly as I possibly can. Although I do prefer the Hogue rubber wraparound finger groove grips, the grip panels used on the Ultra line of pistols are more than adequate for my needs. With that said, grip panels for all RIA 1911s that use the G10 grip are unique to RIA pistols with regard to the type of thumb safety used with these pistols. If you wish to change out grip panels, be sure to check for compatibility with Rock Island Armory 1911s before purchasing, to save yourself a headache when you find out that what you ordered will not work. If you are observant, and I know that you are, You will notice that the grips are beveled at the bottom. Usually, when a magwell extension is installed, you will find that grip panels have no beveling at the bottom to make them blend in better with the magwell extension. Those are straight-cut grip panels, of which these are not. The grip panels are not perfectly blended with the magwell shelf, but it is not enough to quibble about, given the cost of the pistol. Some things one must not bother with. Note that while the barrel is shorter than that of a government model 1911, the grip length is the same, and the Ultra MS has a magazine well extension that allows the unobtrusive carry of 8+1 rounds of ammunition. The magazine well extension does not add an appreciable amount of grip length that would affect concealing the pistol. The beveled magwell extension is a Wilson combat unit that mounts via the lower grip panel bushing and provides quick insertion of magazines. This type of magazine well means that the grip panels must be relieved of material to accommodate the magwell extension mounting ears. The magwell accommodates an 8-round single-stack magazine, and only one 8-round magazine, an ACT-MAG, is provided. The magazines of this type are widely available at a reasonable cost. Speaking of magazines, there must be a way to capture and release them. That is the job of the, as I call it, magazine catch and release button, which is located only on the left side of the frame, just behind the trigger guard. The magazine catch and release button is raised, oversized, and has adequate checkering for a positive push. Magazines lock up nicely and are released just as nicely. Now, let's move to the trigger. The trigger housing is adequately rounded, formed to protect the trigger, but with no undercut, and will accommodate a gloved hand. The trigger itself is the now common medium skeletonized 3-hole type with over-travel adjustment. The trigger is excellent, but slightly gritty when new, and comes in with a trigger pull weight of 2 pounds 3.8 ounces with a 5-pull average. However, the trigger is smooth, let off is crisp, and there is very little take-up, and no over-travel experienced. Speaking of over-travel, and although the skeletonized trigger is set-screw adjustable for over-travel, I found that no adjustment was needed. Before I forget, the last control is the slide stop, as it is called. Slide stop is extended, well-formed, and well-textured for releasing the slide to chamber a new round from a freshly loaded magazine. Some teach that once you've reloaded your handgun, you should grasp the slide between your thumb and all 4 fingers, then forcibly pull the slide to the rear and quickly release. This will disengage the slide stop, and as the slide goes forward, it will chamber a cartridge from the new and fully loaded magazine you just inserted. Some advocate using the slide stop as a slide release. They argue that it's faster. It probably is, but pushing down on the slide stop with your thumb is a fine motor skill, and fine motor skills can deteriorate when you're under stress. They can and do. Regardless of the method used, do not allow the slide to slam into battery without either a live round or snap cap chambered. Doing so is gun abuse. When the pistol is empty, lower the slide in a controlled manner to prevent parts from just slamming together. Let's wrap up this features segment and get into the maintenance of the Ultra MS. The Ultra MS has a full-length guide rod, or an FLGR, that many have a love-hate relationship with. The FLGR does somewhat complicate disassembly and assembly of the pistol. Here is a special tool that you will need. You will need to modify a large paper clip or equivalent circumference of wire to make a guide rod tool that will be used to hold the recoil spring, guide rod, and guide rod bushing together as a single unit. Straighten, bend, and cut a large paper clip or equivalent circumference of wire into a L-shaped tool to the approximate dimensions as shown. The short end will be inserted into the hole in the guide rod. Before attempting to disassemble any firearm, safety is first and foremost. As mentioned, field stripping the Ultra MS, according to Rock Island Armory, entails the use of a bent paper clip or tool to capture the recoil spring, guide rod, and guide rod bushing. And here is how it's done. To begin field stripping of the pistol, the hammer remains in the cocked position, as when you left it after performing the safety check. Leave the slide in the locked open position. Using the modified bent paper clip or equivalent, insert the short, bent end of the paper clip or tool into the hole in the guide rod. Push the slide lock down. The slide moves forward, capturing the recoil spring, guide rod, and guide rod bushing in the process. Move the slide to the rear and align the takedown slot in the slide with the slide lock tab. Push the slide lock partially out of the frame and from the right side of the frame. Pull the slide lock assembly completely out of the pistol from the left side of the frame. Separate the slide and frame assemblies. Turn the slide so that the internal components are facing up. If the barrel swing length is not up, push it up and back until it is flush with the barrel. Remove the captive recoil spring, guide rod, and guide rod bushing from the rear of the pistol. Rotate the barrel swing length forward until it is flush with the barrel. Remove the barrel from the front of the slide. The pistol is now fully field stripped for maintenance. Cleaning the pistol involves scrubbing the barrel bore and chamber with a bore brush dipped in a firearm cleaning solvent to remove firing residue and foreign matter. Using that old toothbrush dipped in solvent, clean the areas around the slide's breech face. Other parts and areas to be cleaned are the frame and slide rails, firing pin, extractor claws, and other adjacent areas. After cleaning, wipe all surfaces with a clean dry cloth to remove all traces of the solvent, and then apply a light film of oil immediately thereafter. Inspect all parts when dry. Inspect the pistol for obvious signs of wear, damage, or abuse. You are checking for incorrect installation of parts, unusual finish wear, rust, corrosion, cracks, or painting damage. Look for signs of abuse, such as deep scratches, particularly around the slide stop. A slide or frame that is bowed could be signs that the gun has had a critical case failure, often referred to as a kaboom. If you would like to download a complete 1911 checklist, I have posted a link in the description where you can download a copy. With that said, external and internal machining is excellent for a reasonably priced pistol. While no match accuracy is claimed, I have the utmost confidence in my RIA 1911 pistols for defensive use. There will be high spots, areas where metal-to-metal contact occurs. This is normal. Follow the lubrication schedule that I present shortly. As a note, and if you will be changing the recoil spring, and you will at some point, Rock Island Armory has published a spring rate guide for each of their 1911 models. When I get a new 1911 in the house, I like to measure the length of the spring, just to get an idea of what a new spring length should be, and use that as a guide when installing a fresh spring, to ensure that proper spacing is maintained under compression. That's a topic for another day. The recoil spring length for this pistol is 4.5 inches. The recoil spring has a heavier spring rate and is shorter than that found on the full-size version, and the Ultra MS requires a bit more aggressiveness in its handling over what is needed for a longer-barreled pistol. The recoil spring rate according to Rock Island Armory, has a spring tension weight of 20 pounds. If the recoil spring does need to be replaced, Rock Island Armory suggests that wolf springs be used. It has provided a recoil and mainspring guide on their website in the FAQ section. For your quick reference, I have included it here. Use a premium lubrication product. Grease is not recommended. If the lubrication product contains Teflon, shake it well before using, as the Teflon does settle. Lubricate the parts that I am showing right now. Now that everything is properly cleaned, inspected, and lubricated, it's time to put everything back together. Install the barrel into the slide with the swing length down. Ensure that the barrel is locked into place. Position the swing link so that it is fully to the rear. Align the recoil bushing with the slide opening above the barrel from the rear. The bushing is keyed and can be installed only one way. Push the captive recoil spring, guide rod, and bushing all the way forward until it stops. Rotate the swing link forward and straight up and down, or as close as you can get it that way. Assemble the slide and frame until you can see the swing link through the takedown pin opening. You will need to flip the pistol so that it is in the normal position. When you see the swing link hole, insert the slide lock pin into the swing link hole, but not completely into the frame. All we want to do is to capture the swing link at this point. Move the slide to the rear and align the takedown slot in the slide with the opening in the frame. Position the slide lock lever with the slide stop plunger. Slowly push the slide lock assembly straight into the frame. Push or pull the slide until it can be locked into place with the slide stop, and then lock in the slide. The pressure on the recoil spring tool will lessen. Remove the recoil spring tool. Push or pull the slide to the rear enough to release it with the slide lock. Holding the slide firmly, allow it to go forward into battery. The pistol is now fully assembled and ready for a function check. I normally use a couple of snap caps for function testing. With snap caps, I can protect the firing pin stop, firing pin, check for extraction and ejection, and check that the slide locks back on an empty magazine. I leave their use totally up to you. Insert a magazine that is loaded with a few snap caps. With the finger off of the trigger, cycle the slide to chamber the first snap cap. The hammer is now in the full cock position and should not follow the slide forward. Without gripping the pistol, pull the trigger. The hammer should not fall. Place the thumb safety lever in the up safe position. Without gripping the pistol, pull the trigger. The hammer again should not fall. Place the thumb safety in the down fire position. The hammer should not fall. Grip the pistol as you normally would to fire, pressing in on the grip safety. Pull the trigger. The hammer should fall. With the hammer down, attempt to push the thumb safety into the up safe position. The thumb safety should not go into the safe position. For a 70 series pistol, like the Ultra MS, use your thumb to pull the hammer back until you hear the first click. This is the quarter cock notch. Grip the gun normally and attempt to pull the trigger. The hammer should not fall for any reason. Pull the slide fully to the rear and hold. The first snap cap should be extracted and ejected. Allow the slide to go into battery, thus chambering the second snap cap. With the slide fully forward, attempt to push on the barrel hood. There should be little or no movement. Push in on the barrel at the muzzle end. There should be no perceptible rearward travel. Cycle the slide until all remaining snap caps have been extracted and ejected. The slide stop should engage and the slide should stay locked open on the empty magazine. Repeat with each empty magazine that will be used with the gun while checking to ensure that each magazine is captured solidly. Check that each magazine is released properly by pressing the magazine release button. 2 more checks and we are done. Remove the magazine if one is installed. Hold the slide firmly while pressing the slide lock lever down to release the slide. Allow the slide to go forward slowly while pulling the trigger every 1/2 inch of forward slide travel. The hammer should not fall until the slide is fully in the battery. This checks the disconnector operation. One last check to perform is to lock the slide back and inspect the face of the firing pin hole. Firing pin should not be protruding. If any of the function checks fail, do not attempt to fire the pistol. Seek out a competent gunsmith, as the pistol is not functioning as it should. Replacing a recoil spring on a standard full-size 1911 that uses a barrel bushing, or even one that uses a FLGR, is pretty simple. This model, the MS, takes a little bit more thought and effort to replace the recoil spring, since it is a captive unit only held together by the modified paperclip or retaining tool. First of all, the recoil spring must be tensioned further and held in place while the tool is removed from the guide rod. To accomplish this, I modified a standard bushing wrench, where I can also use it to compress most, if not all, captive recoil spring, guide rod, and guide rod bushing assemblies, such as this. The opening in the center of the bushing wrench allows me to slide the wrench over the front of the captive assembly and seat against the rear of the assembly. The captive assembly is then squeezed enough to allow the retaining tool to be removed. Note that the assembly is still under extreme spring tension. I use a bench or a tabletop to press the bushing wrench enough to remove the recoil spring retaining tool and maintain pressure on the wrench throughout this process. The recoil spring tension is then slowly released until all spring tension is gone. The assembly can then be, disassembled, and a new recoil spring installed. When the new spring is installed, the saddle of the guide rod bushing and guide rod are aligned so that they both agree. The unit is compressed until the hole in the guide rod is visible. Then the recoil spring retention tool is inserted to, once again, capture the entire assembly. Ensure that the recoil spring retention tool is completely in the guide rod before releasing the pressure. The entire captive recoil spring, guide rod, and guide rod bushing can now be installed into the slide, which may require just a slight alignment adjustment to ensure that the saddle of the guide rod bushing and guide rod saddle is aligned. Then, the pistol can be assembled as was shown previously. Wow, maintenance was sure a trip. With maintenance out of the way, I have a need for some range time. What do you think? I thought that you would agree with me. Performance is my first desideratum in a firearm. My nicest is to make the firearm run as best I can during a range session. Okay, enough of the fancy words. I'll get down to earth regarding range time with the RIA Ultra MS. The pistol is brand new, and honestly, I do expect some run-in issues. Hopefully not, but one never knows. My intention is to begin breaking in the pistol so that it can be carried should I decide to do so. Obviously, it has to perform 110% regardless of ammunition used. Today, I am just using standard fodder, but depending on how it performs with that fodder, I'll put a couple of defensive loads through it. Magazines are a blend of ACMag, Mecgar, and Wilson Combat. These have performed well in my other 1911 pistols, so it's worth the effort to see if they work in this 1911. Let's pick up on the range session, and I'll make comments during the session with a synopsis after the session. As I have said in the past and will continue to repeat it, concealed carry of a full-blown 1911 is not any different than attempting to conceal any other firearm. It takes seasonal planning and the right combination of support equipment, holster, belt, clothing, etc., to pull it off successfully. The larger the firearm you are trying to hide, the more work goes into doing it. For some, carrying a full-size 1911 is just out of the question. For others who can, there are many products and resources for doing just that. While I have many holsters for carrying the 1911, I do have several favorites. The first is the Felco A112 Hawk IWB holster for strong side carry. It can house all standard sizes of 1911 pistols. The second is the Alien Gear Cloak Took 3.5 IWB holster that I have set up for cross-draw carry. Like the Felco Hawk, it can house all standard 1911 sizes. For OWB cross-draw carry, there is the CH4015 from Craft Holsters. The fourth is the Felco D601 Timeless Rotor Shoulder Holster System for vertical shoulder carry. Finally, I have a Gelco Miami Classic, a favorite of mine that I use to house an officer and commander size 1911. The short holster length, however, allows too much of the forward end of a government model to protrude for my liking, but it serves well for the two mentioned. Obviously, there are other holsters and systems that will serve with distinction as concealed carry carriers. Personally, I am in favor of all leather holsters, which are much more friendly to a firearms finish than Kydex or Kybrid holsters. Referencing the Ultra FS40, the grip panels that came with the pistol are G10 types of what I call a medium texture to keep the hand in place. All of the Ultra models come with identical gray and black grip panels from VZ Grips, which are cut on the right side to accommodate the Rock Island Armory type ambidextrous safety levers. The grip panels are affixed in place with appealing black Torx screws. While I do appreciate these grip panels, I felt a change was needed to make this pistol stand out from my other Ultras. The grip panels were changed out to a set of VZ 1911 Alien Burl full-size grips that have been cut internally for the Wilson Combat Magwell extension and also for the Rock Island Armory 1911 right side thumb safety lever. The stock Torx grip panel screws were reused, as they blended well with the new grip panels. In addition to the grip panel change, the flat mainspring housing has been exchanged for an arched mainspring housing by Ed Brown Products. However, a magazine well extension was not included, as the standard magazine well was retained. The Alien Burl grip panels did add a new look and feel to the pistol, as does the arched mainspring housing, as my hand conforms to it better than the flat mainspring housing. The Ultra MS also has the G10 grip panels and are the same as on all Ultra models. In a word, boring. Plus, it was hard to tell what firearm was what in the collection. The Ultra MS also needed change. I decided to replace the standard magwell housing on this one, and the Ed Brown arched mainspring housing with extended magwell was the first item to be ordered. Next was deciding what grips were to replace the gray and black G10 grips. That led me back to VZ grips. That led to selecting the 1911 VZ ETC full-size grips in a moccasin color pattern, standard thickness, full size for external magwell, no magazine button relief cut, but our ambi safety cut for the Rock Island Armory safety type. These panels are not as aggressive to the hand as are the grip panels for the Ultra FS40, but do have the texturing needed in all the right places. Installation of the new parts is usually a straightforward affair, and I am becoming somewhat adept at replacing mainspring housings. But this one, it fought me. I ended up very slightly chamfering the mainspring housing hole where the mainspring retaining pin is installed in the new Ed Brown unit to give the mainspring pin a better chance of going in and self-aligning the mainspring hole within the frame. You see, sometimes things just don't want to line up, but you can't beat them into submission with a BFH. It takes patience and working out a solution, which I did. The grip panels look great, giving the Ultra MS a bit classier look, while the arch mainspring housing with magwell extension helps the grip feel better in my hand, and still provides a nice beveled channel in which to insert a magazine. The bottom of the grip panels better conform to the wider magazine well extension of the Ed Brown unit. While not perfect, the update really makes the Rock Island Armory Ultra MS stand out from its brothers. So, where does the RIA Ultra MS fit in the grand scheme of things? First of all, it is a 1911 Commander length all-steel pistol chambered in 45 ACP and made to the 70 series 1911, the latter of which is the most desired. What sets it apart from others is the additional features, such as the ambidextrous safety, a nicely shaped beaver tail with memory bump, a set of good sights, the rear of which is fully adjustable for windage and elevation, the G10 grip panels, a magazine well extension that allows the carry of an 8-round magazine relatively unobtrusively. It has a very good, responsive trigger that is neither too light or too heavy. It has a length that makes it easy to handle when operating and easier to conceal when carrying, over a full-size government model 1911. The RIA Ultra MS is a heavy pistol, and the weight can be both a pro and con. The weight contributes to less felt recoil when shooting, but may be the con to carrying the pistol. The RIA Ultra MS does have a bull barrel with a full-length guide rod, one or both of which may or may not be desirable. The original and new Colt Combat Commander has a standard barrel, barrel bushing, and guide rod. The RIA Ultra MS somewhat follows in the line of the Custom Carry Commander by Colt, but comes with a much lower price tag. But is the price of the RIA Ultra MS worth the show? It is reliable and is accurate in the hands of a trained shooter. It is more than adequate for use as a defensive pistol and gives away nothing in the way of quality. In my lifetime, I have relied on a 1911 from various manufacturers, and depending on the environment that I wish to travel to, the 1911 remains a steadfast companion in my carry rotation. The RIA Ultra MS just may be a pistol for you. I can't answer that, but you can. Well, I have come to the end of another chapter in the Range Ronin Chronicles pistol series. I hope that you found it informative, and will return for my other reviews. Until we meet up again, be vigilant, be armed, and be safe out there.